Welcome, everybody, to the NHL Weekly Show on the Really True Sports Network. I'm your host for the NHL Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster, and as always, my co-host, Sam Mcginnis. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing pretty good.
Just pretty good. All right, so Sam...
It changes every week, you know.
No, it doesn't. You're always doing pretty good.
It's good, pretty good, or great. That's usually... I'm not even sure if I have used a different one than one of those three.
Okay, we'll go with that. 5 goals in a game is pretty good, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah, I believe it's only been done, I think, 61 or 62 times now, if you count it.
Yeah. Well, keep telling me about it. I didn't see that game last night. I wasn't home, or the night before, whichever night it was.
Yeah, I didn't actually see that game either. I had to look at highlights because I was headed up to Michigan at the time, so I was actually on the road. But yeah, Mike, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name correctly because I can't, but Zibanejad, he scored 5 goals, straight up burned the Capitals. He absolutely incinerated that team as a whole. I was very surprised, and considering he's a good player, but he's not like an Alex Ovechkin. That's the person you'd expect it from. But no, it's a guy from the Rangers, right? And you just wouldn't see that coming.
Yeah, and it was the one Ranger game I hadn't watched in the last 2 weeks. That was a good choice by me, huh? All right.
Yeah. Dude, 5 of 6 goals. He scored the majority of his team the whole game.
He wasn't good enough to
Quite
get them
impressive.
all, though. All right, so list number 1. What are the Rangers' chances to make the playoff in your estimation? I think they're 3 points back at the last playoff spot.
Yeah, they're not far off, and that really depends because the Islanders right now are stalling out. I don't expect it to stay that way, but they currently are stalling out. So if there is a time to win, it is now, and they're getting Stinkin back here pretty quick. So they could potentially remove either the Blue Jackets or the Islanders from the playoffs and just sneak in these last, 15 games? A little less than?
All right, now, Sam wanted to talk about his beginning of the season predictions versus the way it is now, which told me off the bat, Sam must have done pretty good on his beginning season predictions to want it to be the main topic of the show. So, Sam, tell us what you had at the start of the year compared to now.
Yeah, so for the most part, I felt like I did pretty good. There are a couple big misses, though. It was really hit or miss this year. If you want to start in the Central, my number 1 was the Blues. Now, that's pretty obvious. Probably something the majority of people did at the beginning of the year. Not like a big, why did you do that? But here's where we come up on one of the big whiffs. I had the Predators at number 2. So that's just, they're technically still in the playoff race, but I still see them as a generally dead team, especially considering the Wild have passed them 3 times this season already.
Well, I don't think they're a dead team. They're still in it. They're right on the edge.
But even if they got there, though, they just get blown out. I thought they would die in the playoffs. I guess they decided to do it early, and, I guess you can't choke in the playoffs if you don't even make them, right?
They're only a point back.
I'm just saying. They're not going to do much.
You need to quit being so negative all the time, Sam.
That's probably true just in general in life.
I mean, remember, it wasn't long ago you wanted to fire John Tortorella, and then now you're like buddies with him, asking him questions on TV, and you throw teams under the bus all over the place, and they always come out better for it. So I think this is like the Madden curse for football, only in reverse. So if you trash a team, that means there's a good chance they're going to win the Stanley Cup.
Man, the Red Wings must be going to the Stanley Cup this year then.
No, the Red Wings are your team, Sam, so you're being punished.
They are my team, but I've trashed them about 20 times.
It doesn't matter, though. When it's your team, it makes it worse then.
Oh, it's like the double Madden curse. Nice. But hold it. The Madden curse has been at least lifted off of one person, though.
Who was that? I don't even know who's on Madden. I don't play video games.
Mahomes, he was on the cover this year.
No, was he? Well, he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
right. So I don't know. Maybe the Madden curse hit Antonio Brown so hard it just decided to take a year off, I guess.
Or maybe the Madden curse never really existed at all. Maybe it was just happenstance.
Number 3, I have the Stars. They're doing about how I expected, and I still think they're a Stanley Cup contender in there. Their division is difficult, though. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. It's a very difficult division. 4, I had Avalanche. Doing a little better.
Oh, a lot better than what you had. If they were fourth, they'd be like 13 points back. Don't give me that, Sam. Colorado's.
I had them as a first wild card, and instead they're like, oh yeah, we could win the division this year.
Oh yeah,
so,
they're only
this goes
2 games back, and they're 7-1-2 in their last 10 games.
Well, yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe they've played one less game than the Blues too, haven't they?
Yes.
I don't. Okay, yes. Yeah. So. Yeah, so they've also played one less game, which really means they're only 2 points back instead of 4, right?
Well, they're only 2 points back right now. The Blues are at 90. Okay, the Avalanche are at 88.
They could potentially then just be basically the same record at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're giving the Blues a run for their money.
Or the extra game could mean they're 4 points back. It's just according to how that extra game goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I expected them to develop by not this year but next year, but developing early. Always nice to be an overachiever there.
Yeah.
5, I had the Jets. I still believe this could happen with goaltending and all that, but the Jets have been very erratic this year. It's been hard to tell exactly what they are in general. Then 6, I had Blackhawks. Now that's not far off. They're at 7, and then at the Wild, who have surprised me recently. They've been pretty low most of the season. But they might be in a wild card spot right now, I think.
They are.
Either that or they're like 1 point. Oh,
they have the 8th best record in the Western Conference right now, Sam.
Yeah, and that surprised me because I put them dead last because I didn't see anything. And here's the funniest thing is they got better after they traded people away, including Zucker.
Yeah, sometimes addition is by subtraction.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's just the way it is. It's very surprising and interesting to see with them at least.
All right, what do you got in the Pacific Division?
Pacific. I accidentally moved the page too early. Pacific, I had Golden Knights at number 1, and I'm so happy this is finally playing out because the Golden Knights were not playing the way I wanted them to, prediction-wise, the whole season until recently. So they're finally on top. I think they'll keep that spot, but they do have people close behind, including the Oilers and Flames, I believe, are close behind as well.
Yeah, the Oilers are 2 points back. The Flames are 5 points back.
Yeah. 2, I had the Flames. And then we're going to talk another big whiff here. 3, I had the Sharks. I thought maybe, they'd die the following year. But
Jeez.
That's yeah. They died a year earlier than I was expecting. I knew they were old, but I was not expecting this to be the end, and it just is. Sorry, Sharks fans. You had a good run, though. 4, I had Coyotes. I had them missing the playoffs, though, so I had both the Avalanche and Jets getting the wild cards, which still could be a possibility. I mean, the Avs are going to do better than a wild card spot, but we'll see.
Yeah.
5, I had Canucks. We want to talk about another big whiff. Yeah, so they could still even win the division.
They're in 4th.
They could still win the division.
No, they can't.
They could, too. They've been on top twice this year, and they still have enough games left to do it.
They can't. They're 8 points back, and they're 4-5-1 in their last 10 games.
I'm just telling you, they could get hot.
No, they could get hot, but they're still not going to win the division because when you're 8 points back, that's basically 4 games with around, 57, what's there, about like 20 games left in the season?
It's like 20 or 15. It's right around there. So you got a little less than a quarter of the season left.
This is the way I would look at that. If they go 10-0 to be tied for first, the Golden Knights would have to play 500. I'm just telling you, it's unlikely that they're catching anything. Because actually, if you say
unlikely, but I think it's possible.
But you could also say the Coyotes could, because they're the same amount back, and the Coyotes aren't going to.
No, the Coyotes are a bit more dead in the water than the Canucks are, though. The Canucks, we've seen what they can do. The Coyotes have been insanely inconsistent the whole year, so.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, the Canucks aren't going to win the division.
Yeah, I don't know. It's possible. I do think they'll have a surge and definitely get higher than they are now. Division is possible, but it would be on the outside for me. 6, I had the Oilers. Nice job on overachieving, by the way. I was not expecting this at the beginning of the season.
Wait a second.
We saw some good stuff.
I don't think that you can say way to go overachieving. I just think you messed your pickup. Because they've been top
they
two
overachieved.
No.
I didn't do that. I messed this up.
I think you underachieved.
I was saying they overachieved.
No, I think they achieved. I think you underachieved on that pick, Sam.
Yeah, it was a miss. The last two were pretty obvious, though. Kings and Ducks. Although, on a side note, the Kings, even at the bottom of the division, just won 4 games straight. How about winning when it doesn't matter?
Well, it's better than not winning at all, I guess.
That is true. That is true.
I guess. You know, they could still catch the Sharks. So could the Ducks.
It's just positioning of picks now.
Yeah. Atlantic Division, Sam. Hopefully you had the Bruins. I think every right-minded individual did.
So I had the Bruins at number 2. I had the Lightning at number 1, but with the caveat that I figured they would choke at some point in the playoffs again. Now, it's pretty close, but the Bruins are definitely solidly in first, so you want to just flip those two teams.
That's 4.5 games, basically.
That's why I said they're solidly in first.
It's
been close
they're going to win the
division.
division. Just say it. They're winning the Atlantic.
They are. I'm not denying that. I'm saying it was close. I just needed to flip those two. I had Maple Leafs and Panthers at 3 and 4, so that was pretty nice. That's where they are now. Then Canadiens, Sabres, and then you want to flip two teams again. I had Red Wings and then Senators, but my Red Wings suck quite a bit, so
but they'll get the first pick, right?
I mean, assuming the draft lottery goes their way, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I'm assuming. They should have a lot more lottery balls than everybody else because they've only won 15 games. That's not very good.
Don't remind me. Funny enough, it's...
What?
I said funny enough, it's apparently better when I don't watch them because the 2 games that I've actually been able to get them on TV this year, they lost both 6-0, but then when I immediately turned the game off the next day, they won both their games, or it was the next game that they played. So,
all right, Sam. What
apparently
about the
my team doesn't like me. Number 1, I had Capitals. This is kind of a no-brainer on the universal scale, so no upset there. But then this one, which at the beginning of the year you'd think so, but it's turned out to be a bit of a mess, is the Hurricanes is what I had at number 2.
Yeah, and right now they wouldn't even be in the playoffs if the playoffs started today.
Right, and it's very weird because they were doing well, but then they fell out of the gate, and people were expecting, myself included, them to be better than they were last year because of what they showed during the playoffs, but they just haven't been.
Yeah, I think that's the case of a team just getting hot at the right time. Nobody really expected Carolina to do that last year, correct?
Correct, yeah. It wasn't like everybody's saying Carolina's going to win versus the Capitals, again, usually, myself included. I thought they'd get swept.
Usually when teams come from nowhere, they usually go back there shortly after. Because there was a reason usually that you think that teams are not that good. And it's usually because they're not. But they got hot at the right time, made a little run, still got beat in the end.
Right. Number 3, I had the Islanders. Now, despite the fact that they are doing, they've been bad recently, they've lost 5 straight, which is, again, now is the wrong time to start losing games with the Rangers coming up behind them. But they are currently still in the mix of playoffs, so it wasn't too far off on that one.
Sure it wasn't, Sam. What do you got next? Where do you have the Flyers?
We'll get to that in a minute. We're going to talk about big whiffs there.
You had them in 15th, didn't you?
I had the Penguins at 4, doing better with, I think part of that had to do with Tristan Jarry for sure. I don't think they would be as good without him. I still think they could make a playoff spot without him, but they certainly wouldn't be where they are now and having been on top of the Metro at least once this year without him. So that has pushed them beyond my expectations. 5, I had the Blue Jackets, but I had them missing the playoffs. I had the Penguins and Panthers picking up the wild card. Again, the Blue Jackets have one-upped me. They do that quite often, in fact.
Just because you don't like their coach.
I still, you know what? Even after being in an interview with him, he has different moods. I have seen him in interviews where he's gone nuts, and the one I was at, he answered my question pretty nicely, but it was clear he was annoyed with the question, probably because he's heard it 50 million times this year, because it had to do with injuries, but I don't know. I still don't like his attitude.
Oh, you're so mean. All right. Are we done? What about the Rangers? Where do you have the Rangers?
I had the Rangers at 6. Remember, we were talking about this earlier on. I thought their rebuilding would be done by next year, but there's a chance it could be done this year.
I don't think there's a chance it could be done. They may be able to slip into the playoffs, but they're not going to be what they can be until next season, I think.
Okay, well, then that begs the question, what is the sign of being done in a rebuild? Is it making the playoffs, or is there a certain attribute that you have to complete first?
What's the rebuild? I mean, or what's the goal? Because in New York, I don't think the goal is for the Rangers to just make the playoffs. That was the goal this year. You know, maybe we could slip into the playoffs, but next year we could really get something done.
Right.
So then I think the goal is to be a contender when you get to the playoffs. I think what they've done is they've built it so they're a contender to get to the playoffs. I think next year you're going to see a contender that can actually do something when they get there. Now, I think the Rangers might be good enough to win a series and upset somebody, but I think that's about it this year if they do get in.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but then there's another question that then comes up with the Stanley Cup playoffs being what they are. It's harder to tell who's a true contender at that point.
Yeah, because anybody can win. You get a hot goalie, but I'm just saying, generally, you don't get too many Blues that are in last place in January and all of a sudden come up and win the Cup either.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. All right, so top 5.
My biggest myth.
Go ahead.
Hold it. My biggest myth. I have to rub this into myself. Flyers, I had it 7th. I did not think Carter Hart would be able to return the way he has. I didn't think the team would be what it has been, but they've done an incredibly good job of doing one thing specifically, and that is beating very good teams, very talented teams. I mean, they beat the Capitals for I don't know how many times this year. They've beaten them both times I've watched them, pretty convincingly too. They beat the Blues. They beat good teams, and I think it's a great attribute, especially heading into the playoffs, where it really doesn't matter who you play in, and that's just added upon their mentality. And then I had the Devils at 8. Again, pretty easy on that one.
All right, so let's do this. Let's go with our top 5 threats to win the Stanley Cup. Start off if you're number 5, and then I'll give you mine.
Number 5, I'd probably put the Golden Knights.
Oh, me too. We're even. Number 4?
Number 4, now this is a little weirder, but the main reason for this is age, and it's harder to get through longer playoffs because of this. So I would say Bruins at number 4. They certainly have the potential for a Stanley Cup, but it's a little harder because they're all getting a little older, except for maybe like Pasta.
I'm going to say the Washington Capitals.
That's fair. That's who I have at number 3. So.
Okay. My number 3 are the Boston Bruins. So I agree. I think the age may preclude a long run. What do you got at number 2?
Number 2, I probably have the Stars, actually.
Okay. My number 2 is the Colorado Avalanche.
Really?
I think offensively...
I got to know who you have at number 1, though.
I think... who do you got at number 1?
I have the Avs, so I was curious who you put above them, because I know you didn't like the Blues for number 1 last time we talked.
I don't even have the Blues in my 5. My number My number 1 is the Philadelphia Flyers. I think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. This is what I saw.
Again, we talked about this before this started. I'm not going to argue that. That's fair.
The thing I noticed about them, I watched them play the Rangers like a week ago. And the thing that really struck me is how well they played together, how much they looked like they enjoyed playing together. And the team basically has confidence that I think is oozing. They're only a couple points behind the Caps in the division. I think they have a strong four-line rotation, complete with versatile center depth. And, I mean, I would read what I wrote, but my eyesight sucks. But I think, Couture, I don't know. And Kevin Hayes, I think they are offensive-minded, but defensively cautious centers, and I think that they made some quality additions at the trade deadline. They're 23-5-4 on home ice, which is a huge factor if they finish first or second in the Metro Division. And I think they're better than average on special teams. I think they're 12th on the penalty kill, 81.2%, which is tied for 9th on the power play at 21.6%. So I don't think this team that has any glaring weakness. They may not have anything where they're just better than everybody. But I think the depth on their four lines and their ability to play special teams, I think are all huge. And if they can get home ice advantage for a series or two, I think this is a team that can make a run and surprise people.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing I like about them most, I think, has to come down to, two things I like about them most is, as I mentioned, they can beat great teams. So even if they had to end up playing a better team if they fell back a little bit, it really wouldn't matter. And second off, they win when it matters. They're clutch, and that's one of the most important factors in any playoffs. So having that going into the playoffs is huge.
All right, so who would be your Stanley Cup final right now?
Ooh. You may have just changed my mind. I'd go Avs Flyers.
Oh, geez, really? That's what I got. You can't have the same thing because I talked you into it.
Okay, so we'll go Stars Flyers.
No,
then.
just you see now you're still on the Flyers thing. Where did you have the Flyers ranked out of your top 5 there?
I had them at 6.
Okay, so there you go. Before I convinced you of this, you didn't even have them in your top 5 contenders to win the Stanley Cup, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, it was convincing though, and
right.
I still, I got nothing else on that one. This is good points. Ones right. I haven't heard about some of the other players. So
well, it's just the brilliance of me, Sam.
Yes, I know you talk about it a lot.
I do not. But I did see
I wonder
the St.
if
Louis
we look
Blues
back at
thing
every
coming.
podcast, how many times you've mentioned how brilliant you think you are on air.
Oh, I don't think I
It's
hardly
been a few
ever.
times.
You obviously don't listen to all the other podcasts. Correct?
I listen to some of them. I like the NFL ones more, though.
Well, yeah, because it's football.
It is football.
Yes, it is. That's very, very bright of you to know that NFL is football. Because you spent a lot of time in Michigan, and the water up there is really bad from what I hear.
Yeah, Flint and Detroit water kind of suck.
Yeah, literally, they probably could. All right, let's go to some listener questions, and the first one is from @Bob27. Does Jared Bednar have a goalie controversy in Denver? If so, does this help or hinder the Avalanche's chances of winning the Stanley Cup?
I don't think he has a goalie controversy. I mean, the thing is what people don't understand about these things is unless it's a Jake Allen-Biddington situation where there's clearly a better goalie, okay, put him forward. But if you have two goalies, just play them both. You give the other one more rest that way, and they can probably play better because of it.
Yeah, because I don't think it's a controversy if the coach believes in both and chooses who the goalie is each night without hesitation or wavering. And basically, you just go with the hot hand come playoff time.
Right, and if both goalies know that, it'll be competitive, but if they're at least decent people, they're going to understand this is helping the team. So, yeah, if done right, it won't be.
All right, next up, this is from, and he asks a question almost every week, @1994 Rangers. How come Adam Fox doesn't get any Calder Trophy love? He's been the best defenseman on the New York Rangers this season, Sam.
I think the main part of that is because there are just young players that are just better than him. It's pretty much that simple. It's not like he hasn't done well. It's just the fact of the matter is Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, both better at the same position. So the reason he's not getting that much is because other players are overshadowing him. And part of that does have to do with override, but I think the main point is just that it's not like he hasn't had a great year or something, but it's that other players have had better years. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, but I think he's in the mix. I think he's probably I think he is third among rookie defensemen in scoring. I don't know that those guys are necessarily better than him. It could be the situations they're in. But I think also it's slow to come for any rookie defenseman.
Yeah, and the thing is Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar came into great situations, like you were mentioning, versus taking up a Rangers position. But if he does well in the playoffs, if they get there, he could switch more favor to his side.
All right, we've got Goody42. He has 3 questions, Sam. Are the NHL general managers looking to change the playoff format?
I've heard mixed things about this. I personally, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I personally like it, the current format, because you get a lot of divisional matchups, which divisional rivalries, always fun. But general managers are mixed on this. I know some of them, I don't know the exact people because I haven't gone in depth on this because I don't think it will change. But I know some of them want to change it and others don't care.
Yeah, from what I read about this, at the NHL general managers meetings, there's been zero talk about it. So I don't think that's anything that's going to happen anytime soon, if ever.
Right, and that's why I was like, first off, I don't care that much as long as the playoffs are still good. It doesn't make a huge difference to me. And as I said, I don't think it'll change, so I haven't paid that much attention. But I know a couple general managers that haven't said on much during those meetings do still want to change it, but I don't think they will.
All right. If you don't know this one, I can give an answer. It's Ranger related. Any possible call-ups for the Rangers from Hartford?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one.
I would say this.
I don't.
The Rangers haven't dipped into their AHL affiliate in Hartford since Chris Kreider fractured his foot. I don't anticipate one coming anytime soon. I think the Rangers are content with what they have on the roster now. Plus, they have 2 more non-emergency recalls remaining for the rest of the season. I don't think there's an obvious candidate to recall from Hartford now, except for rookie forward Vitaly Kraptov. I don't know. I have a hard time with the foreign names, but I know who he is. And I don't think he's ready yet. The third question on the Rangers is Heinrich Lindqvist done after this season?
That would probably make the most sense for the organization, but the answer is no. It's not like he's going to – I talked about this with we had the special podcast with Trade Deadline.
Yeah, Carl Landry,
the guy
from the Fourth Line Hockey Podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, Carl and me were talking about this. We both said, it would make a whole lot of sense, but who's going to give up millions of dollars and nearing, peak points for being able to just finish off career with some nice numbers? Like, who's going to do that, though? And he said he wants to retire with the Rangers, but again, he'd have to forfeit millions of dollars. Nobody's going to do that in their right mind.
He may be done with the Rangers after this season, be it through a trade or a buyout, but I don't think he's done.
That would be
NHL.
Such a punch in the gut, though. I mean, it could happen. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that'd be a low blow for a guy that's helped you out for so many years.
Well, I think it's also, if his final year of contract is bought out by the Rangers, my guess he will look in free agency and try to sign a 1 or 2 year contract with a new team to extend his career. I think he can play, but he hasn't been able to prove it regularly in the last month and a half. I think he's only played 5 or 6 games since January the 2nd, and he hasn't received enough.
Well, he's slowing down.
Yeah, but
that's
he's hurt.
why.
You're hurt, you're tired. That's what happens when you get old. That's why I'm tired right now. All right, we'll give one more from Zach Chambers, who wants to know, now that the trade deadline has passed, who do you see winning each division? Sam, Metropolitan.
Washington. The game flows. Teams will have streaks of high and low. The Capitals are typically right at the top and have stayed around there, and their flow has been right around there. Versus you've got the Flyers, everybody's been talking about them. We were talking about the Penguins only a few weeks ago having taken that spot, and there was one other team at one point, I forgot who it was, during the season that took it before that. But the Capitals have been the one consistent team that have kept that spot over time, so I think in the end they'll end up getting it.
I'm going to say Flyers. Atlantic Division, I think we both agree Boston?
Yeah, no, it's the Bruins.
Yeah. The Central Division, Sam?
Central, I want to say Avs, but again, I just got done talking about flows. I'm actually, like, as the season has gone on, things have quieted up and gone more towards what I thought at the beginning of the season, so I'm going to have to keep the Blues here.
All right, I'm going to go Avalanche. Pacific Division.
Pacific, now this is a toss-up, but I've said this for weeks and weeks. I thought the Golden Knights would get hot and then get there. They have, and I think they'll stay.
Yeah, I agree. Golden Knights also, but I hope Edmonton does.
I don't know. Edmonton is interesting now that they've got Anthony as well, because they've got two speed guys on that Connor McDavid line. That's really nice. Fun to watch, anyway.
Yeah, and also, sad news in the world of hockey today. Hall of Fame center Henri Richard, whose 11 Stanley Cups with the Montreal Canadiens are the most won by any NHL player, has died at the age of 84. He spent his entire 20-year career with the Canadiens and played in 10 All-Star games. He followed in his footsteps of his brother, Maurice the Rocket Richard, one of the NHL's most prolific goal scorers, who was 15 years older, 3 inches taller, the 5'7" Henri Richard, I even know how to say that, and I screwed it up, who earned the nickname Pocket Rocket, get it, because his brother was the Rocket, was better known for setting up goals. He twice led the NHL in assist. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of Henri Richard. All right, Sam, anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
No, that was good. And I honestly didn't mind that guy sent in 3 questions. It does not bother me.
Yeah, as long as it's not like about the Ducks or something, then we'd have been screwed. Well, then I wouldn't have read it. So.
Well, here's the thing. You get the advantage of being able to read these before we start.
No,
I didn't know about the
Sam,
AHL thing because I don't pay attention to the Rangers AHL.
Sam, I really don't. I looked at how you wanted to do the show 5 minutes before I called you, and then I pulled up the NHL standings, and then I pulled up the mailbag questions that have accumulated over the last week. And if anybody has any questions, even about the Ducks, we'll answer them. Trust us, we will. But you can send those questions to @GruelingTruth on Twitter. You can direct messages, or you can just tweet to us. You can also tweet to Sam at
Samuel McG22.
Or you could actually, if you listen to the show live, you can actually ask questions during the show. The only problem is sometimes those questions will be answered a week later because a lot of times I don't have the show pulled up while I'm doing it, so I don't see the questions. But once somebody asks a question on a hockey show through Spreaker, I'll start paying attention. Sam, great being on again with you this week. I want to make sure everybody knows you can hear us every Saturday morning on thegruelingtruth.com, which is when you're listening to us now. So if you're listening to this show, we taped it at like 7 o'clock Friday night. So if something happened and it's not on here, don't give us no crap about it because we didn't know about it. But, Sam, anything else before we go?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, guys, remember, you can hear all the shows for The Grueling Truth live at thegruelingtruth.com or Spreaker. You can follow us at Grueling Truth. You can hear the podcast version of our shows on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes. We're now on Rockfin, which Rockfin is a subscription-based, $9.99 a month. We will put some content where you can only get it on Rockfin. And when you sign up for Rockfin at $9.99 a month, you also get about 2,000 other creators and everything they do. Unlike YouTube, it's not censored, so you can actually have an opinion on something, even if it's transgendered people, and nobody gets mad at you. So make sure you check out Rockfin. And for now, for Sam Mcginnis, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.